Hello, and welcome to Day by Day True Crime Stories, the podcast where we explore a different crime or justice milestone from this day in history. I'm your host, Kona Gallagher, and today is July 9th. On this day in 1999, 34-year-old Kimberly Langwell stepped out of her home in Beaumont, Texas, to collect a few of her items from her ex-boyfriend's house. She told her daughter she wouldn't be long and she'd be back in time for dinner. But she never made it back home. For nearly 25 years, her family lived in a nightmare, searching, hoping, and wondering. And then, finally, in 2024, that nightmare cracked open. Kimberly's remains were discovered in a place her family had suspected all along. Now, in 2025, the man that they believe took her life is facing a judge. Today, we're looking back at the long, unsolved disappearance and murder of Kimberly Langwell, and how a daughter's determination brought her mother home. Let's get started. Kimberly Lachey Langwell was a 34-year-old single mother living a busy, full life in Beaumont, Texas. She worked as a sales rep for a medical company. It was a demanding job that required sharp people skills and plenty of hustle, and Kimberly had both in spades. People described her as vibrant, grounded, and deeply kind. She had a magnetic smile, a strong sense of responsibility, and a fierce love for her teenage daughter, Tiffany. The two were incredibly close, more like best friends than mother and daughter. Tiffany later said that her mom was her entire world. By 1999, Kimberly was coming into her own. She had recently ended a toxic relationship with a man named Terry Rose. It hadn't been an easy breakup, and though the relationship was officially over and had been for months, there were still some loose ends. Kimberly had stayed in touch with him, mostly out of caution or perhaps a lingering sense of obligation. But even with this messy breakup, Kimberly had found a new boyfriend and was trying to start a brand new chapter in her life. It was a humid Friday evening when Kimberly told her daughter that she needed to step out for a bit. She was going to make a quick trip to pick up some of her belongings from Terry's house. She was driving her maroon Nissan Altima and said that she'd be back soon. But she didn't come home. And she even missed a dinner with her new boyfriend and her daughter, Tiffany. By the next morning, Tiffany and the rest of the family knew that something was terribly wrong. Kimberly was the kind of person who always checked in. She was where she said she was going to be, always. She didn't just disappear, especially not without her daughter knowing. That same day, police found her car abandoned in the Eckerd parking lot at Dolan and Phelan Avenue in Beaumont. Her purse was still inside, but her cell phone was gone. There were no signs of a struggle, and there were also no signs that she'd gone into that store. When police came knocking on Terry Rose's door, he told them that she'd come to his house that night just like she had told everyone. But, according to him, they talked briefly, she left, and that was the last that he saw of her. Her family, though, didn't believe him for a second. Kimberly's family had always been wary of Terry Rose. After she went missing, those suspicions only deepened. Kimberly had been trying to make an actual break from him. She was setting boundaries and she was trying to rebuild her life. And now she disappeared on the very night that she went to see him. Police questioned Terry and searched his home on Lindbergh Drive, but at the time they found nothing. No body, no forensics, and no indication that anything bad had happened there. With little to go on and no formal charges filed, the case quickly lost steam. For Kimberly's family, especially for Tiffany, the silence was devastating, but it didn't silence them. Tiffany, who was just a teenager when her mother vanished, grew up refusing to let the case fade. Year after year, she pushed for answers, organizing vigils, keeping Kimberly's name alive online, and pressuring investigators to keep looking. And eventually they did, with the help of the show Cold Justice on Oxygen. In the spring of 2024, nearly 25 years after Kimberly disappeared, Beaumont police and Cold Justice returned to the same house they had searched all those years ago. Terry Rose's old residence on Lindbergh Drive. But this time, they had something that they didn't have in 1999: ground-penetrating radar. On June 12, 2024, officers excavated a section of the front yard. And there, just beneath the surface, they found human remains. Weeks later, DNA testing confirmed what Kimberly's family already knew in their hearts. She had been there all along. It was every family's worst fear, and yet, in some painful way, it was also a relief. After 24 years, Kimberly was finally found. Tiffany shared a powerful statement soon after. Quote, "It's a long time coming, and I'm so very grateful to have my mother back. Not in the way I wanted her, but to know that she's no longer being held is a great feeling." End quote. In the weeks following the discovery, Terry Rose was arrested and charged with murder and evidence tampering. Prosecutors now allege that he killed Kimberly the night she disappeared and later buried her in a shallow grave on his property. Rose's legal team requested a psychiatric evaluation, which briefly stalled the case. But in June 2025, a Jefferson County judge ruled that he is competent to stand trial. As of this recording, Terry Rose remains in custody, and a trial date is expected to be announced later this year. Kimberly Langwell wasn't famous. She didn't make headlines in life. But her story and her daughter's refusal to let it go represents something bigger. This case is about love. It's about a daughter's unrelenting pursuit of truth and about how justice, no matter how long it takes, can still arrive. In 2024, on the 25th anniversary of Kimberly's disappearance, the community gathered for a candlelight vigil in her honor. Family, friends, and strangers lit candles and shared memories. And for the first time, the words, "We found her," echoed through that space. Kimberly is finally home, and her voice, which was quieted for far too long, is now a part of a larger conversation about justice and the power of never giving up. Thank you for joining me on today's episode of Day by Day True Crime Stories. If you found Kimberly's story compelling, please subscribe, rate, and review this podcast. It'll help us grow. And be sure to join me again tomorrow as we explore another significant event in true crime history. Until then, stay safe and remember that behind every headline is a life worth remembering. Day by Day True Crime Stories is a Little Monster production.
Hey, you can do it!